I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my very soul, the moment I realized that my wife had left me for a man she deemed better, shattering our shared dreams in a single heart-wrenching instant. In those first 100 heartbeats, every hope I had cherished, every sacrifice I'd made, crumbled into a torrent of disbelief and seething betrayal. Her decision, so cold and unapologetic, turned our life together into a shattered mirror reflecting all my vulnerabilities. And now, as fate would have it, I stand on the precipice of a transformation so profound that she, the very woman who abandoned me for someone she believed superior, is forced to watch me become everything she once wanted but never could have, everything I was meant to be. For years, I believed our marriage was built on mutual respect, shared ambitions, and the quiet promise that our love could weather any storm. I dedicated myself wholly to our future, sacrificing my personal dreams and pouring my energy into creating a secure, loving home. I worked tirelessly, often burning the midnight oil, convinced that every sacrifice I made was a stepping stone toward a brighter tomorrow for us both. I took pride in the small victories, the extra hours at work, the careful budgeting, the moments when I thought our unity was our greatest strength. I trusted her with my heart and my hopes, never suspecting that beneath her warm smiles lay a growing discontent, a yearning for something, or someone, she believed I could never be. Then one day the unthinkable happened. Without warning she left. Not with an explanation or tearful goodbye, but with a cool detachment that left me reeling. I learned, through hushed whispers and half-spoken words, that she had chosen him, a man she claimed was better than I ever could be. The realization was a brutal slap. My sacrifices, my relentless devotion, all rendered meaningless by her search for something she felt was lacking in me. I felt exposed, humiliated, and utterly betrayed. The dreams we had built together were shattered in a moment, leaving behind only fragments of what might have been. In the aftermath, I wandered through our empty house like a ghost, haunted by the echo of our shared past. I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by photographs and mementos that once symbolized our love, now serving as stark reminders of what I had lost. The silence was deafening, a constant, grim reminder of the promises that had been broken. I questioned every memory. Had I been so blind to the subtle signs that she was drifting away? Had my unwavering support been taken for granted? The pain was indescribable, a mixture of anger, sorrow, and a gnawing emptiness that threatened to consume me. That night, unable to sleep, I turned to my journal, a battered leather-bound book filled with my innermost thoughts and dreams. With trembling hands I began to write. I poured out every raw emotion, the sting of betrayal, the weight of unreciprocated sacrifice, and the overwhelming sense of loss. Each word was a desperate attempt to understand how the woman I had loved so deeply could have found someone better. I relived the countless late nights, the missed family gatherings, and the long hours spent proving my worth, only to have it all dismissed as insufficient. As I wrote, I felt a shift deep within me, a spark of defiance ignited by the painful truth. I vowed then that I would not be defined by her abandonment. Instead, I would use this shattering experience as the catalyst for a transformation so complete that, in time, she would have no choice but to witness the man I was becoming. A man of strength, vision, and undeniable worth. That night marked the beginning of a journey I never anticipated. A journey of self-reclamation and reinvention. I resolved to transform every tear, every moment of heartbreak, into the fuel that would propel me toward a future of my own design. I made a silent promise that I would work tirelessly to rebuild not only my career but also my sense of self, redefining success on my terms. I knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, that the scars of betrayal might never fully fade, but I also knew that within me lay an unyielding strength waiting to be awakened. With the raw intensity of my emotions driving me, I began researching new career opportunities and ways to enhance my professional skills. I combed through job postings, networked with former colleagues, and enrolled in courses to sharpen my expertise. Each step I took was a deliberate move away from the shadows of my past, a move toward a future where I would no longer be the man she left behind, but the one who soared far beyond her expectations. I reevaluated my ambitions and set new, bold goals that reflected my true potential. Goals that would not only prove my worth to the world but also, perhaps someday, force her to reckon with the consequences of her choices. As dawn broke over the horizon, I closed my journal with a sense of grim resolve and stepped into a new day. I was determined to let this betrayal redefine me, to harness the pain as a stepping stone toward a future of relentless ambition and self-respect. I took the first cautious steps on this uncharted path, knowing that every moment of heartbreak had sown the seeds for a transformation that would soon bloom into something extraordinary. I was ready to become the man I always knew I could be, a man so resolute, so empowered, that the very notion of better would be redefined by my achievements. In the immediate aftermath of that devastating revelation, my world shifted into a blur of raw emotion and relentless introspection. Every day after I discovered she had left me for a man she deemed better, was a day marked by a chaotic blend of disbelief, seething anger, and a dawning resolve to reclaim my identity. I found myself oscillating between a suffocating despair and a fierce determination to rebuild everything I had lost. In the silence of my apartment, I would pace the worn-out carpet while replaying every conversation, every quiet moment, every subtle sign that now made horrifying sense. The memory of her parting words, the cool, dismissive tone with which she walked away, haunted me relentlessly. Yet, amid that deep-seated anguish, a spark of defiance began to grow. I refused to let her rejection define me. Instead, I resolved to transform that betrayal into the fuel for an extraordinary comeback. I immersed myself in long hours of reflection and self-analysis. Every night, I retreated into the solitude of my study, where the only sound was the scratch of my pen on paper and the steady hum of the city outside my window. I poured every thought, every feeling of inadequacy and sorrow into my journal. I questioned how I had allowed myself to be so blindsided by her departure. Had I ignored the subtle hints of her growing detachment? Had I mistaken her quiet moments for commitment? The more I wrote, the clearer it became that her departure wasn't about my shortcomings. It was about her own insatiable need for something she believed I could never offer. In those pages, the heartbreak eventually transformed into a fierce resolve to reclaim my worth. I began to see that every sacrifice I had made, every long hour I had devoted to building a shared future, was not a failure on my part. It was evidence of a relentless commitment to a dream that was now mine to redefine. As the days turned into weeks, I channeled my emotional turmoil into decisive action. I started by reevaluating every aspect of my life, my career, my finances, and even my personal relationships, seeking to rebuild from the ground up. I realized that if I was to rise from the ashes of this betrayal, I needed to transform my mindset. I began researching new job opportunities and business ventures that would not only provide the financial stability I craved but also restore the sense of dignity I had lost. I attended networking events and reached out to former colleagues who had always seen potential in me. With every conversation, I felt a slow but steady reawakening, a stirring of ambition that I had long kept dormant under the weight of our shared disappointments. At work, I threw myself into projects with a renewed passion. I took on challenges that pushed my limits, determined to prove that I was capable of achieving more than what anyone had once expected of me. Late nights at the office became my battlefield, where each spreadsheet and every innovative proposal was a declaration of my worth. I worked tirelessly, not only to secure a better position for myself but to build a professional reputation that would resonate far beyond the confines of our past relationship. With every successful presentation, every nod of approval from management, I felt my confidence mounting. I was no longer content to be overlooked or underestimated. Instead, I harnessed the sting of betrayal to propel me forward, channeling every ounce of hurt into a laser-focused drive for excellence. Simultaneously, I began to restructure my financial life with a clarity that bordered on obsession. I revisited old budgets, scrutinized my investments, and set up new safeguards to ensure that I would never again be vulnerable to someone else's reckless decisions. I consulted with financial advisors, attended seminars on wealth management, and took detailed notes on strategies for long-term security. Every financial decision I made was now deliberate, a calculated move to build a future that was entirely my own. I opened new savings accounts, diversified my investment portfolio, and even began exploring entrepreneurial ventures that aligned with my passion for innovation. Every upward tick on my bank statements became a tangible symbol of my resilience, a quiet reminder that I was taking control of my destiny. Even as I mourned the loss of what I had once envisioned with her, I was steadily laying the foundation for a future where my value was recognized and my independence was secure. Yet, amid these professional and financial pursuits, I couldn't ignore the emotional landscape that lay before me. The betrayal had left deep scars, and I knew that healing required more than just practical measures. It demanded that I confront the pain head-on. I sought the help of a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma, and over a series of intense sessions, I began to unravel the tangled web of emotions that had accumulated over the years. I learned to identify the subtle signals I had missed, the furtive glances, the secretive phone calls, the moments when her attention wavered, and to understand that these were not failures on my part, but warnings of a deeper fracture in our bond. Through therapy, I discovered that forgiveness was not about absolving her, but about liberating myself from the shackles of resentment. Every session was a painful yet necessary step toward reclaiming my self-worth. I began to see that while the betrayal had shaken me to my core, it also offered an opportunity for profound personal growth, a chance to rediscover who I truly was independent of her expectations. In the midst of all this inner turmoil, I also began to reach out to those who had once been my support system. I reconnected with old friends and even reached out to family members who had always been there, albeit quietly, in the background. In long, honest conversations over coffee and during quiet walks in the park, I shared my journey of betrayal and recovery. Their responses were a mix of empathy, shock, and encouragement. They reminded me that I was not defined by this painful chapter, that my worth was intrinsic, and that the path to healing was paved with the courage to embrace both the darkness and the light. Those interactions helped rebuild my sense of community, making me realize that I could forge new bonds of trust even after the deepest of betrayals. During this period of reconstruction, I also dove back into creative pursuits that had once given my life color and meaning. I returned to writing with a fervor I hadn't felt in years, filling pages of my journal with unfiltered thoughts and emotions. I began drafting essays about the nature of betrayal, the process of healing, and the transformative power of resilience. My writing became a form of therapy, a way to externalize the swirling chaos inside me and convert it into something tangible and beautiful. I even started a private blog, sharing snippets of my journey with a small, supportive audience. The responses were overwhelming. Strangers reached out with their own stories of heartbreak and triumph, and every comment reinforced the belief that my struggle was not isolated but part of a universal tapestry of human resilience. As the weeks turned into months, the integration of all these experiences began to reshape my perspective. My daily routine, which had once been dominated by self-doubt and uncertainty, now flowed with a determined rhythm. I woke up early for my morning runs, letting the rhythm of my footsteps on the quiet streets serve as a meditation, a reminder that every step was a step away from the pain and toward a future defined by my own ambition. I scheduled long hours at work where I poured my energy into innovative projects and strategic planning sessions, each task a deliberate effort to prove to myself that I was capable of rising above the betrayal. Evenings became a time for introspection, where I would sit by the soft glow of my desk lamp and write down my reflections, slowly piecing together the roadmap of my new identity. This period of intense transformation was not without its moments of vulnerability. There were times when the weight of the past threatened to overwhelm me, a memory of her cold dismissal, a flash of regret for the time we had once shared. In those moments I allowed myself to cry, to feel the full spectrum of emotions without judgment. I realized that true healing required acknowledging the pain and then channeling it into strength. Each tear, each painful recollection became a building block for my new self, a reminder that I had the power to rise, rebuild, and redefine my destiny. Slowly, I began to see that the betrayal, as crushing as it was, had unlocked a resilience I never knew I possessed. It became clear that my journey was not just about reclaiming what had been lost, but about creating a future where my worth was unequivocal and my dreams were entirely my own. Every conversation, every sleepless night, every small victory in the days that followed added layers to my transformation. I started to question not only my past decisions but also the very values that had once defined me. I began to ask, what does success mean to me now? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? With these questions in mind, I reevaluated my goals, both professional and personal, and started setting new, ambitious targets that were informed by my newfound clarity. I envisioned a future where I would not only rise in my career but also inspire others with my story, a story of overcoming betrayal, of reclaiming self-worth, and of building a life that was as resilient as it was fulfilling. In this crucible of change, I realized that my journey was beginning to take shape in unexpected ways. The world around me, once indifferent to my quiet struggles, was slowly recognizing the depth of my transformation. I noticed subtle shifts in the way colleagues spoke to me, in the increased trust and respect I received during meetings, and in the new opportunities that emerged as a result of my relentless drive. Every upward trend in my performance metrics was a silent, powerful affirmation that I was on the right path. I felt a deep, abiding certainty that my efforts were not in vain, that the hardships I had endured were laying the groundwork for a future defined by unyielding success. As the months passed, I became more confident in my new identity. I began to see my past not as a chain that bound me, but as a series of stepping stones that had led me to this moment of empowerment. I started to mentor others who had faced similar betrayals, sharing the hard-won lessons of resilience and the importance of reclaiming one's self-worth. These mentoring sessions, often held over coffee in quiet cafes or during long walks in the park, became a source of immense satisfaction. I realized that by helping others navigate their own journeys, I was reinforcing my own growth, and that my story, though born of pain, had the power to inspire transformation in others. Every day, as I meticulously balanced work, self-care, and creative expression, I felt the transformation solidify within me. My routine, once punctuated by doubts and uncertainty, now resonated with purpose and determination. I kept a detailed log of my progress, a chronicle of every challenge faced, every victory achieved, and every lesson learned. This log became my personal blueprint, a reminder that I had the strength to overcome even the deepest betrayals. I saw that the scars of my past, while permanent, were now emblems of my resilience, each one a mark of survival, a symbol of the battles I had fought and won. By the time I reached the end of these tumultuous months, I realized that I was no longer the man defined by betrayal and heartache. I had transformed that pain into a driving force that propelled me forward, both professionally and personally. I had redefined success on my own terms, built a robust foundation for the future, and discovered an inner strength that I had never known existed. Every small victory, every strategic decision, was a reaffirmation that I was in control of my destiny. And as I prepared to move into the next phase of my journey, I carried with me a newfound sense of clarity and purpose, a determination that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would continue to rise, rebuild, and redefine what it meant to be truly successful. In the following months, my life shifted dramatically as the consequences of that pivotal moment unfolded. With each passing day, I felt my resolve harden like tempered steel. I had taken her words to heart at first, her callous demand that I get a better job, echoing in my ears long after the conversation ended. But I refused to let that criticism define me. Instead, I used it as fuel, a spark that ignited a fierce determination to transform not only my career but my entire identity. I immersed myself in every opportunity to prove that I was more than the sum of others' low expectations. The turning point came when I made a bold, almost audacious move. I hired her ex-boss. That decision was not made lightly. I had spent countless hours reviewing my options and weighing the risks. I recalled the days when I'd watched him command respect in the boardroom with a quiet confidence and visionary insight, a man who had been sidelined by a toxic work environment that my wife had somehow influenced. His experience, his ability to lead with integrity, and his unyielding dedication to excellence resonated deeply with me. I reached out to him discreetly, proposing a meeting over coffee in a quiet, upscale cafe. Our conversation was unexpectedly candid. He spoke about the stifling corporate culture that had forced him out, about his unfulfilled ambitions, and about how he, too, had been underestimated by those who valued appearance over substance. As he spoke, I felt an electric connection, a shared understanding that our talents had been squandered by the very people who should have recognized our worth. In those long hours of conversation, I saw not just an opportunity for professional reinvention, but also the blueprint for my own resurgence. His insights opened my eyes to new ways of thinking, and I began to weave his wisdom into my own plans for the future. I knew that by joining forces with him, I could push the boundaries of innovation in our industry and build a leadership team that valued authenticity, dedication, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. I spent sleepless nights drafting proposals that merged our complementary strengths, my fresh perspective and his seasoned experience, to create a vision for a revitalized company culture that prioritized real talent over shallow image. The plan was intricate and demanding. I organized a series of private meetings with key stakeholders in our department, carefully laying out a new strategy that included not only the restructuring of our operations but also the implementation of rigorous performance metrics that would ensure accountability. I presented detailed financial projections, market analyses, and an ambitious roadmap for long-term growth. Every slide and every statistic was laced with the passion of a man who had once been dismissed and now refused to be overlooked again. In these meetings, I spoke with a calm certainty that contrasted sharply with the bitter pain I had once felt. I could see the skeptical eyes in the room slowly soften into expressions of respect and, eventually, trust. It was in that moment, the moment when the board finally nodded in agreement, that I felt the full force of my transformation. I was no longer the man she had told to get a better job. I was now a leader whose vision could steer an entire company toward a brighter, more sustainable future. Yet, as professional success began to materialize, the internal journey was equally profound. I continued to attend therapy, where I dug deeper into the emotional wreckage left by her abandonment. In those sessions, I revisited the painful memories with a new perspective, learning to see them not as scars but as chapters in a story of growth and self-discovery. I acknowledged the moments of self-doubt that had once held me captive, and slowly, I began to replace them with a robust, unshakable confidence. I realized that her harsh words had inadvertently awakened within me a strength I never knew I possessed. A strength that now propelled me to not only excel in my career but to redefine my entire sense of self. I wrote extensively in my journal, every entry a mix of raw emotion and calculated plans for the future. I began to see that the betrayal had, in a perverse way, been a gift, a brutal but necessary push that forced me to reassess my life, to set new boundaries, and to pursue my dreams with an intensity that no one could diminish. Outside the corporate sphere, my personal relationships began to evolve too. I reconnected with friends who had always admired my quiet perseverance, and I forged new bonds with people who valued genuine character over superficial success. Our gatherings, once tinged with the sadness of my recent heartbreak, gradually filled with laughter and shared hope. In these intimate settings, I discussed my journey openly, and I was struck by how many had experienced similar betrayals and emerged stronger for them. Their stories mirrored my own, and the solidarity we shared became a powerful reminder that my struggles were not isolated. They were part of a broader tapestry of human resilience. These relationships reinforced my belief that the true measure of success is not how others treat you in your weakest moments, but how you rise from them with renewed vigor and purpose. Simultaneously, I embraced creative pursuits that had long been neglected. I returned to painting, a passion that had once offered me solace during turbulent times, and found that the act of putting brush to canvas allowed me to translate my inner turmoil into something tangible and beautiful. My artwork, raw and unfiltered, became a visual diary of my transformation. I also began writing a series of essays, each one exploring different facets of betrayal, recovery, and self-reclamation. When I shared these pieces on a private blog, I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Readers from all walks of life reached out to tell me that my words resonated with them, that my journey gave them the courage to face their own challenges. That communal acknowledgement was a turning point, a reminder that my personal healing was part of a collective experience and that, together, we could redefine what it meant to rise above adversity. As the months turned into nearly a year, the fruits of my labor began to solidify in both my professional achievements and my personal growth. I started to see tangible results from the strategic changes I had implemented at work. Improved metrics, rising profits, and a renewed sense of purpose among my team members. Her ex-boss, now a key advisor on my board, proved to be an invaluable partner. His guidance helped me navigate complex business challenges, and together, we steered the company toward innovative solutions that resonated with our clients and stakeholders. The transformation was not merely a reversal of fortune. It was a complete reimagining of our corporate culture. I introduced new performance standards, created transparent systems for recognizing contributions, and fostered an environment where ideas could flourish without the threat of being stolen or dismissed. The changes were gradual but profound, and soon the company began to thrive in ways that exceeded even my most ambitious projections. Financially, I experienced a similar renaissance. My meticulously revised investment strategies began to yield impressive returns. I diversified my portfolio, reallocated resources to emerging markets, and set up protective measures to ensure that my newfound financial independence would not be jeopardized by future betrayals. Every upward tick on my financial statements was a victory, a quiet but powerful affirmation that I was in control of my own destiny. I started setting long-term goals, planning not only for immediate stability but also for a future where I could continue to innovate and invest in my own growth. The process was painstaking and required a level of discipline I had not known I possessed. But with each small victory, I reclaimed a piece of the security and respect that had once been taken from me. Throughout this period of professional and financial resurgence, I remained deeply committed to my personal evolution. I continued my therapy sessions, which became a cornerstone of my healing process. Through them, I learned to view every setback as a valuable lesson, every moment of pain as a stepping stone toward a stronger, wiser self. I began to internalize the idea that my worth was not determined by external validation but by the courage to overcome adversity and pursue my dreams relentlessly. I crafted a daily routine that balanced rigorous work with introspective solitude, a schedule that allowed me to maintain focus while nurturing the inner peace I had fought so hard to achieve. Every morning, I would rise before the sun, take a long run to clear my mind, and then dedicate myself to a day of strategic planning and creative thought. Every evening, I returned home to a quiet space where I could reflect on my progress and plan for the next step of my journey. Amid the steady rhythm of these transformative months, I began to reach out more openly to my network. I attended industry conferences and leadership workshops, where I not only shared my experiences but also absorbed fresh ideas from peers who had overcome their own challenges. Each encounter reinforced my conviction that I was on the right path, that my struggles, as painful as they had been, were the crucible in which my true strength was forged. I engaged in deep conversations with mentors who had once faced similar betrayals and learned that the process of rebuilding one's life often required letting go of the past entirely while cherishing its lessons. Their stories, interwoven with my own, created a tapestry of resilience that I began to share in articles and speeches. These public expressions of my journey served as both a personal catharsis and a beacon for others who had experienced similar wounds. In private moments, I also began to dream bigger. I envisioned a future where my career would not only continue to flourish but would also serve as a platform for change, a platform to mentor, inspire, and uplift those who had been silenced by betrayal. I drafted long-term strategic plans for my business that included ambitious expansion projects, new market ventures, and innovative initiatives designed to revolutionize our industry. I explored cutting-edge technologies and sustainability practices that aligned with my values, determined to leave behind a legacy that was both financially rewarding and ethically sound. I reached out to potential investors who shared my vision and began to build a consortium of like-minded professionals, each step a clear signal that I was no longer defined by past failures but by a future of limitless possibility. By the time I reached this point, a year since that pivotal night, the person I had become was almost unrecognizable from the man I once was. The pain of betrayal had been a fierce crucible, but it had also ignited a transformation that permeated every aspect of my existence. My career was thriving, my financial outlook was secure, and my personal relationships had deepened into bonds of genuine respect and understanding. I no longer viewed my past as a chain that bound me to pain, but as a series of lessons that had empowered me to take control of my destiny. I had learned to appreciate every challenge, every setback as an essential part of my journey, a journey that had taught me the true meaning of resilience and the transformative power of self-belief. Standing at the crossroads of my future, I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose and clarity. I was ready to embrace the next chapter of my life with unwavering confidence, armed with the knowledge that my destiny was in my own hands. I had turned betrayal into a catalyst for growth, transforming every painful memory into a building block for success. As I looked back on those tumultuous months, I felt a quiet pride in the progress I had made, a pride that was fueled by the relentless determination to overcome, to rebuild, and to rise above every challenge that life had thrown my way.